So this is the interview for the BookSwell podcast. I'm Cody Sisco, and I'm here with Tori Eldridge, and we're going to talk about books and about inspiration and the writing life.
Terrific.
Tori, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Scooch in so I'll be on camera with you.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. So you have a book coming out. It's a novel. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I want to talk about it first.
Excellent.
So the title, I don't know if you all can see this, but it's right here. It's The Ninja Daughter, and I would say it's an contemporary LA noir.
Oh, you betcha.
Yeah.
Total LA story, gritty LA story, yep.
So tell me about the inspiration for it. Did you start with character? Did you start with plot? Like, how did you come up with this idea?
Well, I got to tell you, a lot of this is drawn from my own life.
Okay.
So, The Ninja Daughter is about a Chinese-Norwegian modern-day ninja in Los Angeles with Joy Luck Club family issues. Mm-hmm. And I am half Chinese-Hawaiian, and I'm half Norwegian, and I hold a 5th-degree black belt in Toshindo Ninjutsu. I've lived in Los Angeles for 35 years, and trust me, I've had Joy Luck Club issues. So, more than that, no, it's not me.
Okay, so but taking your real life a step farther, Lily, the protagonist in your book, decides that what she wants to do with her skills, with her life, is to save women from dangerous situations and to help them recover from trauma because she's been through that herself.
Exactly. Lily went through a real tragic thing where when she was first-year college student, her younger sister was raped and murdered.
Yeah.
On the very night that Lily lost her virginity, I might add, and that can really mess you up.
Yeah.
Lot of issues, and
like a compounded trauma.
Oh my goodness! And there was, there's this sense of letting down your sister and not being there for her. This undeserved guilt.
Yeah.
And Lily had already been a lifelong martial arts practitioner. She started with wushu, which is a Chinese martial art, until she noticed this, Japanese sensei in a park tossing people around like confetti, and she was like, I got to be in on that. But as a Chinese, with a Hong Kong mom, training with a adult Japanese man in a park, I don't know. There's so many things that are kind of iffy on that for a 12-year-old girl. She didn't tell anybody. Yeah. So she did all that in secret.
Did you have your own experience where you kind of discovered martial arts, and like what was your introduction to that whole world, which in the book it comes through? I mean, I knew nothing about either of those traditions, but having read it, I feel like I was immersed in that kind of world for a while.
Yeah. When I was younger, my big thing was dance.
Okay.
So I wanted to dance on Broadway, and I did. So, yay. And at that time, I had always thought about the martial arts, but dance is so physically taxing that you really can't do two of those things.
Sure. Yeah.
So when my eldest son was 5 years old, I enrolled him in karate, and I started watching, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can do this. And so I did, and I became absolutely obsessed. And, I just took to it like crazy. So my first black belt was in Tongsudo Karate, and I had overlapped that with ninjutsu because one just wasn't enough. And then I got my first black belt in that, and then I was teaching in both, and I dropped that one, and I just went crazy with the ninjutsu, and didn't stop. And just doing it up through a 5th-degree black belt, and it was just so incredible. It's such an all-encompassing art. Unarmed weapons, archaic weapons, modern weapons.
Yeah.
Like anything that we have right here in front of us can be used as a weapon.
What I appreciated about, there were moments in the book where Lily was entering a situation with sort of limited weapons.
Yes.
Like she had to do something, but she had to take stock of what was around her, what she could possibly use, and I feel like that sense of having to adapt to your surroundings was really interesting.
Oh, huge. Adaptation and flexibility, it's key. It's key to being ninja. And a modern day ninja is somebody, think about it. One of my big goals with this was blasting through the stereotype of ninja, right? So you're not going to see that whole fantasy thing. She's a Los Angeles gal. You know, she doesn't own a car. She drives a bike. She takes metro.
It's literally gritty because she's riding her bike everywhere and like walking through the mountains.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I mean, she's got a karambit that she likes, this particular knife. But aside from that, she does not carry weapons. You're not going to see her drawing a katana in the middle of downtown LA. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, well, I do want to get into kind of the antagonistic forces in the book, but before we get there, can we talk about family for a bit?
Oh, I'd love to talk about family.
It's in the title. She's not just a ninja, she's a daughter. And so a lot of the book revolves around her relationship with her parents, in particular her ability to be honest with them and to share who she really is with them. Can you talk about why did you make that such a central part of the book?
Oh my goodness. Part of it is family is central to me as a person, but also as a reader. I love to read thrillers, suspense, anything that really takes me deep down inside of a character. And what takes you deep down inside of a character is relationships.
Yeah.
So that's what interests me. The relationships people have, the culture. I love it when people draw me into a new culture. So this dynamic of having a father from North Dakota, a North Dakota Norwegian former farmer, who meets this exotic woman and takes on her culture, and this dealing with that. This is a huge thing. And then you throw in a Japanese sensei. And then you've got a lot of cultures clashing inside her.
It seems like we've got a little bit of noise, but okay, it's better now. It seems like Lily has a very close relationship with her father. They get along.
Very.
That's not the case with her mother. And I wondered about that throughout the book. You know, and part of it could be like I'm missing a mother-daughter dynamic, having not lived through that. But there is a sort of development where Lily becomes more aware of potentially her own mother's journey and a little more sympathetic to it. Whereas in the beginning, she's not. You know, she kind of writes her off.
Yeah. Lily she's 25, and that's a really interesting age. I have two sons. They're 30 and 27. So I've lived through this age, not personally, and watched them go through it. And it's a very interesting age to come into your own as an adult, and also negotiating that relationship with your parents now as an adult. And so it's, add to this the complexity of the secrecy, the family trauma, and the way everybody is dealing with this grief and tragedy in their own way, even though it happened many years ago.
Yeah.
And then all sorts of other pressures. There's all of these underlying things going on that I think is really, it's unique to Lily and utterly relatable to everyone.
Yeah.
Because no matter how our relationships are, even if, my relationship's fine, we've always been terrific, there are complexities, there are nuances and depths in there. And it's important. And I like books that investigate that sort of thing. Yeah.
And in the end, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say the end, should I? I got the feeling that there was more.
In a series.
I got the feeling there was more to this story.
Yeah. In fact, I'm finishing up the second book right now.
Oh, fantastic!
And I've got the third one mapped out.
Great.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they all take place in LA?
The second one does.
Okay. So I will keep to myself my guesses where that third one might take her.
Okay.
But it is interesting how you use kind of the broad canvas of LA in your story. I mean, Lily is in Arcadia. She's in the Santa Monica Mountains. She's down sort of south of downtown for a lot of it. There's a fight in a parking garage downtown, I think. But, like all of these places show up. So that was really fun as someone who likes and has invested in LA literature, and the scene here. Is there like going to be a tour we could take? I especially want to go to the dumpling shop and eat that wonderful food. But if you have any recommendations for that or tacos,
Oh my goodness! Well, I'll give you a recommendation where Lily has that date. Republique.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, that restaurant! I actually, my husband and I went there for dinner, and we met the chef, and he was so cool. He was bringing us all these things, and I did that after I had written that scene, and so it was so fun walking in the door, going, I know this place, and so that was really neat. And of course, Lily's her father owns that Chinese restaurant, but it's fictional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most everything. There's a lot of fact and fiction that's just completely intertwined. So at the end of the book, I have a section that talks about which is fact and which is fiction, and you can go here and you can go there. But when you live in a city for 35 plus years, and I've lived in a lot of parts of the city, and I love this city. And one of the things that I love about it is how different all these little pockets. We have all these little communities and all these cultures, and I don't just mean ethnic cultures. I mean just community cultures. It's a fabulous city for literature.
Yeah, and there's no end to the exploration or discovery.
Oh my gosh, no.
You couldn't in your lifetime. One person, a group of people could not.
Possibly.
Yeah, that's great. One of the central, well, I guess I should say before I get to the idea of the physical layout of the book, where we are right now.
Oh.
We are in the Los Angeles Central Library. We are in a cafe. If you've been to the cafe, there's a lot of space, and sometimes it's a little bit noisy, but we're gonna power through that. The conflict that arises in the book that Lily gets swept up in sort of almost accidentally, because her goal is to protect these women, but they are swept up in a corruption issue around real estate and around development and around the metro in particular. But Metro doesn't necessarily come off as a villain.
No, isn't that interesting? No.
I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah. No, Lily is all about LA Metro, man. I mean,
she's writing it. Yeah.
She is. She just the whole idea of having a car and how long it takes to find parking. I mean, come on. How expensive it is to find, once you get there. And really, so the difference in time we're talking a difference of 20 minutes, 30 minutes is negligible. And for somebody who is athletic as she is, she would much rather be out there biking, running, getting on and off a train than she would be sitting on her butt in traffic.
Yeah, and she is getting many different places, far between. I mean,
She
I
really is.
have to say, like, reading about her biking around, I was a little bit exhausted. I'm thinking about, what if I did that? I would be recovering for like 2 days.
Oh my gosh, she'd kill me.
But I guess she's in really good shape.
She would totally kill me.
So I want to talk about how she, her goal is to help women, and I think at the very beginning, she is trying to help a woman get out of an abusive relationship, a woman and her son, and you definitely captured the complexities of motivations, both for Lily and for, I think it's Ileana?
Oh, Katerina?
Katerina, yes. And her son.
Yes, Ilya.
Ilya.
There, that's where you got it.
And, what... I guess I'm wondering, like, is that going to be a theme to your writing going forward?
Domestic abuse?
Or helping women escape from bad situations.
Oh, absolutely. That is her mission in life, is to be a big sister.
Yeah.
A big sister to other women in jeopardy in a way that she wishes she could have been for her own sister.
Right.
And in a way that she believes she should have been for her own sister. So, this was the reason she dropped out of college. This is the reason she stopped competing in wushu and went to her sensei teacher and said, I'm all in, and this is not a game anymore. And this is what she's been doing for all of these years. So, and so that will continue.
We'll see her continue
Yes, and it's just astounding the kind of jeopardy that you can get in.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in classic noir style, she faces a lot of very violent scenarios. In the first scene, it's not a spoiler because it's like the first chapter. She is actually, tied up and being tortured for information about this conspiracy, and we see a progression of her throughout the book, wondering whether she's taking her mission too far and whether she's becoming like the thing that she sees in Tran, sort of a brutal killer who does it because he can, not because there's a ethics behind it.
Yeah, this is something that's really interesting to me. I love gray areas. Much more interesting to me than black and white.
Yeah.
So here I have this woman, this ninja warrior protector, with a conscience and with doubt.
Yeah.
A lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-questioning. And that's something that I think everybody can relate to, possibly women more than men. I think we're kind of attuned to it a little bit more. I actually think it helps with parenting, because you're constantly questioning, is this the right thing? Is that the right thing? Whereas when you think about the hunter provider, it's like
Never
make a
admit you're
decision
wrong.
and do it.
Yeah.
Make a mistake, we'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
We on the other hand, by we I mean women, are more. We really think these things out, and of course she is a modern day woman, and as I mentioned, a coming of age woman.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-questioning. A lot going on in there, and I think that makes her interesting because the violence that does happen to her, from her, around her, it is not without consequence. It is not without depth. It's not salacious.
Yeah.
And it all has an impact in one way or another that will be felt and dealt with and will change you in some way.
Yeah, and there will be consequences to
Yes,
it.
Change her, change the people around her, change me, the writer, hopefully change you as a reader. Little things that bring little questions that make us think.
So is this your first novel?
This is my first published novel.
That's fantastic. Okay.
This is,
okay, yeah, no, that's a good distinction, yes.
Yes, I have to say, writing is the new career for the second half century of my life. That's how I look at it. I started off as an actor, singer, dancer, Broadway, television, film, then I was a martial artist,
Yeah.
raised a couple kids, did all this stuff. Somewhere in there I was writing screenplays, and I had written a novel. This wild thing set in Brazil. This was a couple decades ago.
Okay.
But I wasn't interested in the business of writing. And there's a lot of business in writing.
There is actually
and
a lot of it.
You betcha. And you betcha. See, it even comes out. And I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to do that. So I put that book away on a shelf, and I got obsessed with martial arts. And then I wrote a nonfiction that was, had to do with empowerment.
Yeah.
And doing all this merry way, and then I got the idea for another novel, and I started writing, and I thought, wait a minute, what's in my closet? I should go read that and see if it's still any good. And I read it, and I went, wow, this is good, but it's not this one. But I need to learn more. I need to learn my craft.
Yeah.
And so it became the project on which I learned my craft, and not just the craft of writing. I immediately, this is 7 or 8 years ago, I started going to conferences, I started building a network, I started making relationship building, mentors, all sorts of things. I had a podcast, meeting people, and so I grew as a writer in craft and in business. And somewhere in there I had written that, and my agent was shopping it, and I had started a sequel, and I had written a short story that got published. That was about this character. And it was called Call Me Dumpling.
Yes.
And it was published in Suspense Magazine's Best of 2014. And ever since I wrote that, I thought, this should be a novel. But I was too busy writing that other sequel, right?
Yeah.
And so my agent said, stop writing that. Write this instead.
Yeah.
And so I did. And so then there was this time where they were both being submitted and all this kind of craziness. And then I was writing a fifth novel, and this is the one that got picked up.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad because it's the closest one to me personally. And the thing that was especially neat was my parents both passed away 91. They lived a long time, but my mother had Alzheimer's, so when I was finishing this up, she wasn't really reading at that time. But my father was able to read an early draft of this. And so that meant a lot to me because he was able to see how much his heritage meant to me that I would write a character.
Yeah, Baba.
Yeah, Baba.
That feels like a love letter to that character. For sure.
Yeah. Which is really interesting because that is not my father, but it is his heritage.
Yeah. How does, shifting slightly, how does the martial arts practice, how has that influenced your writing craft in terms of like process, routines, mental space? Like, is there a relationship or is it two totally distinct domains for you?
Well, that's really interesting. The easy answer is to say discipline, but the reality of that is I am intrinsically a self-disciplined person.
Okay.
That is why I did so well in martial arts. So it's not something I gained from martial arts. It was the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing was I started writing screenplays before I entered martial arts. And I wrote that first draft of that novel before, and I finished it up when I had only just started martial arts.
Okay.
So that's kind of an interesting thing, you know. But it all kind of comes, I think, from discipline, and you know that helps. Oh my!
Essential skill.
Oh, essential skill.
Tori, I want to thank you so much for coming on for the interview for the podcast. And the Ninja Daughter comes out in November.
November 5th.
Okay.
November 5th. In fact, I've got a book launch event at BookSwell.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think
We'll
it's
see you there.
I think it's 6:30 or something. Yeah, check it out.
All right. Thank you, Tori.
All right.
All right.